to me, the one thing that I think is clear is that he's not really his speed in getting rid of the ball is still too slow, and his clock's a little too slow. So I mean, there's no doubt, and I've been saying it all offseason that Brock Purdy should be the number one guy and start in Pittsburgh week one. But I think if you ask me the question, like some people are like, oh, Trey needs to play. He absolutely needs to play. He needs to play right now. Well, I mean, there's he got better from last year to this year, and he didn't play. So how did he get better? He got better by doing mental reps and some physical reps and working with a coach. I don't know that he's ready to play. And in the NFL, if you're not ready to play, it's a painful experience. So I don't know. I think I might push back on the people who say, "Oh, he's just got to play." No, he's got to develop, and he hasn't played a lot. Eventually, he's got to play. But I'm a firm believer that you need to play when you're ready to play and when you're ready to succeed. Because if you go out there as a quarterback and you play and you get sacked a ton, you don't succeed, your confidence is gone, and then now it's not just about getting reps. Now it's about rebuilding your confidence. So I think in some ways you could make an argument that he doesn't need to play until he's ready to play. And based on what I saw last week, he seems like he's not quite ready to play. Where do you think ultimately is going to be best for Trey Lance? And do you think he is going to wind up being on this roster? There's an awful lot of speculation that he won't be.
Yeah, in reality, the real best thing for Trey Lance would be for him not to be in the NFL right now, and it's not because I know how that sounds, but like that super chat saying that the 49ers are going to have a top 5 quarterback in Trey Lance. I mean, let's get Trey Lance to a point where he's capable of being a starting quarterback that plays at a decent level. First off, we're not there. We're not even there yet. I don't think. I mean, I think when it comes that, I think what that super chat right there pointed out as one of the reasons why this is such a debate and why people get so caught up in this debate between the quarterbacks is that there's such a super high belief in Trey Lance. And I'd really like to get a better understanding of what that belief is, other than the fact that the guy is big and strong and can throw the ball a long ways, because those things don't make you a good quarterback. And I agree with you 100%. We've seen improvement from Trey Lance over last year. There's no doubt about it. He is a better quarterback right now, today, than he was this time last year. The ball comes out much better. He's got much better with his accuracy, and he's doing things that he didn't do in the past. At the same time, I think what we saw on Sunday early on is something that we've seen to an extent in camp, but we just don't see it as much or recognize it as much because of our angle of watching the game. We're standing on the sideline and we're watching the play like this as it's happening, like everybody else. When we watch the game on TV, you're up a high, so you can see the entire field. It's a much different look. And I think there's been a lot of times during camp where there have been times when he could throw the ball and he just doesn't do it. We saw it on Tuesday when they were doing the red zone drill. There was 2 back-to-back plays where he got into the pocket, stood there, look. One time he got sacked. The other time he bailed and threw the ball incomplete. And so there's issues there. There's just little things like that. And he's going to have to work through it. And that's why I say I don't know if the NFL is the spot for him right now, because he's not going to play in the NFL unless he goes to a team that's really, really bad. And I think that's why I think this is all the reason why you're seeing teams not offer anything more than a 5th round draft pick for him. Why would the Atlanta Falcons, somebody put out a tweet the other day, who says no to this trade? The Atlanta Falcons receive Trey Lance and the 49ers receive Pitts. And I responded to him and I said, the Falcons say no to that. And why? Because why would the Falcons invest in another project quarterback when they've already been developing a quarterback for a year and now going into a second year? It makes no sense. And it's the same thing that I would say in Washington. I like Trey Lance. He's a great kid. He is a hard worker. You can see the improvement, but saying that Trey Lance is ever going to be a top 5 quarterback is we're a long ways from Trey Lance ever getting there. We are much closer to Brock Purdy being a top 5 quarterback in the NFL than Trey Lance. And it has nothing to do other than the fact that one guy got the experience in college and he's already showing it. And Trey Lance has a lot of things to really like about him. There's a lot of measurables and all that kind of stuff, but it's just not translating into the game yet. You could win games with Trey Lance, I think, if you're the 49ers. But this top 5 stuff, man, we need to let's roll it back a little bit. Let's get him to where where he's good enough for a team to say, we'll give you we've got to have this guy, because at the door, they're just not knocking on the door for Trey Lance right now. The whole top 5 thing is just, I'm not trying to like put anybody down, but we need to step off that discussion, because that's just not where we are. We're not even close to that right now.
It's a really interesting thing because there's so many layers to it. It's like the Niners don't want to look bad. If they trade him for a 5th or 6th or 7th round pick, they're taking the L. It's an official loss. And then at the same time, if you said to me, let's predict how it's going to go, I think they are going to move him. And I've said that this entire offseason. I really think they are. I think they were trying to move him in the draft. I don't think they got an offer that they wanted. And I don't know, what they would want, but to me, the kind of move that they need to make with him, unless they want to lose face, and I think they're going to go with Brock Purdy as the 1, Sam Darnold as the 2, and I think they're going to go with Brandon Allen as the 3, partly for cap reasons. He makes $1 million, and partly because I think they want to make a concrete commitment to Brock Purdy going forward. But then, once again, you take a huge loss if you trade him for a 5th round pick or a 7th round pick or something like that. To me, the only deal I could see that would make sense would be as if you traded Trey with a pick to a team for a veteran player that could help you win the Super Bowl this year. Tampa comes to mind with Devin White. Washington comes to mind with Chase Young or Montez Sweat. These are good players, but you probably could get them for a third round pick right now. I could see the 49ers trading a 3rd round pick and Trey Lance to one of those 2 teams for that veteran player. And essentially that team's getting, Trey Lance to take him off the 49ers plate, off their cap, and they're getting the same thing they would get for Devin White, except now you're getting Trey Lance and a 3rd round pick, or you're getting the same thing you would get for Chase Young, except now you're getting Trey Lance in that 3rd round pick. That's the only deal I think that makes sense. The rest of these deals, like just trading him for a 7th round pick or a 5th round pick or even a 3rd round pick in next year's draft, I don't see how that helps the 49ers win the Super Bowl this year. But if you ask me to make a final prediction on what I think is going to happen, I'll stay with what I've predicted all offseason, that the Niners are going to recommit to Brock Purdy, that he's their guy, and that they're going to move off of Trey Lance. And all the indications are that that's the case. That's why Sam Darnold's here, or that's why Brandon Allen's here. I don't think they've gotten an offer they want, but I think they ultimately will, especially if Trey plays decently in these last 2 preseason games. How do you see the 49er quarterback picture at the cutdown? Who's going to get lopped off?
I see, and like the trades that you just put up, those would be positive trades for the 49ers. But you got to ask yourself, why would the Washington Redskins give up a really valuable defensive end pass rusher for a guy that's not going to help them win a game this season? I shouldn't say it that way.
We don't know that. We don't know that. And why would they do it? Because they're going to pay Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne a ton. They already have not picked up Chase Young's 5th-year option. There's a lot of speculation in the NFL world that they're going to move one of those defensive ends. They don't have a long-term quarterback answer. This would be taking a flyer on a guy who was a top 5 pick. You just heard Joe Banner's thoughts. It sounds like some personnel people still have a high opinion of Trey Lance. They may share that belief. Martin Mayhew was here when the Niners took Trey Lance, so maybe he has an affinity for Lance. I mean, a lot of this is speculation on my part, but I just think that the 49ers, it makes no sense for the Niners to move off of Trey Lance unless they get something that can help them win the Super Bowl. But I also don't see a burgeoning market for Trey Lance, but I do think they want to commit to Brock Purdy, and they have Brandon Allen and Sam Darnold. And the way that John Lynch talked about Brandon Allen and his pregnant wife going into this last game, he made it sound like, oh, man, this guy's part of our family. It didn't sound like, hey, 10 days from now, I'm going to cut the guy who I'm now, saying, hey, congrats on the newborn baby. Now, it's the NFL and anything can happen. But Those are the options. Darnold's here, Purdy's here. They're not going anywhere. It's a matter of, are they going to cut Brandon Allen or trade Brandon Allen, or are they going to find a new home for Trey Lance? You just heard Lombardi, who does have sources, say Trey Lance is not going to be the backup quarterback. Now, I don't like the way he said it and the phrasing he used, and that's a different topic and different part of that. But that's the other takeaway from his line, is that here's a guy with sources who's like guaranteeing that Trey's not only not going to be the starter, that he's not going to be the backup.
Yeah, and if the 49ers are going to move off of Trey Lance this year, they are going to have to get egg on their face. They're not going to get, I just don't see a way that they are going to get a player like Chase Young or Devin White for Trey Lance. I just don't see it. I could be completely wrong. I think if they're going to move off of him, it's going to be for a 5th or a 6th round draft pick, and that's it. And that's why I don't think the move is going to be done. Maybe they just bite the bullet. Maybe there's more going on behind the scenes with Trey Lance that we haven't heard. In which he's trying to pressure the 49ers into making a move. But I just don't. I have a hard time I just don't see a team giving up a valuable asset for a quarterback, which is a different position, unless you expect him to come in and be your starter right away. I don't see it. In terms of Washington, I think they're further down the road with developing the quarterback that they have there, and that's the direction that they want to go. So if you're bringing in Lance, you're giving up a really valuable defensive asset for a guy that's going to be a backup. Out in Tampa Bay, maybe a little bit more of a situation there because they don't have a guy that they're developing. They don't have a long-term possible solution, I think, unless they decide that they're going to make that be, Baker Mayfield, which, he's been okay in his NFL career. He's pretty much been a flop as well. I don't know. If the 49ers are moving off of Trey Lance, I think the move is one that's going to be a bad move on their part because they're not going to get much in return. It's going to be they're going to get pennies on the dollar for what they used to get him.